So we, of course, took it personal. And when I let you know, we put a whooping on the Georgia Bulldogs that day.
And welcome into Touchdown Live. As always, I am Matthew Travis.
And Jones certainly has a lot of chemistry here at Hereford. Goes to McGinn.
McMillon is smithing the tackle for Alabama.
To the M3 show.
It's not always good for the quarterback on the other side to be talking stuff so early in the game.
Look, I don't have a kid on the way this week, but it's almost time for Alabama football season, baby.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the M3 Show. As always, I'm joined by Mac Hereford and Josh McMillon. And this week we have another guest. Last week we had Slade Bolden. This week we have AL.com beat writer Nick Kelly. Nick, thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yet I have a lot less football experience than Slade Bolden, but I'll do my best to pick better than him. My understanding he didn't do so well, so low bar though.
Low bar for Nick. We'll get to the picks here at the end. Slade went 3-5. Nick is gonna try his hand, try and do a little better than Slade did last week, but we have a lot to get through before getting there. Alabama obviously going on the road to Athens to play Georgia this week. We also have some annual opponents to talk about. Alabama drawing Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Auburn for the next 4 years. We'll get into that here in a little while, but Mac and Josh, you guys played against Georgia a couple times, played against them a national championship, played in the SEC championship, and a regular season game in 2020 as well. Josh, for you, just talk about your experience playing against Georgia and what that was like as a player.
Well, it was a very unique situation. So I arrived at the University of Alabama in 2015. Kirby Smart was my defensive coordinator. Mark Rick was at the University of Georgia. So going into that season, we heard a lot of hype about Georgia. Hey, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. I think we ended up traveling there in 2015, and like we were kind of met on the sideline when we were walking out by the rest of the Georgia players that coming over trying to intimidate us, and that completely threw us for a loop. We came in, we were focused, kind of had our eyes set on the mission, and they bombarded us on our sideline. So we, of course, took it personal. And when I let you know, we put a whooping on the Georgia Bulldogs that day. I think Derrick Henry went for over 200 yards. I think, of course, we got many turnovers on the defensive side of things. So, it's different now that I have a head coach. Well, the head coach over there was my former inside linebacker coach. I'm always root for the home team, but it's a little personal knowing, Kirby Smart is one of the guys that were under the Saban tree, and he's has a pretty damn good legacy over there with the Georgia Bulldogs. So we go in it with a mind like, hey, look, this is our brother outside of the football field, but when we step on the field together, we're trying to tear his head off and dominate him.
Of course, and Max, same thing for you. Growing up in Alabama, Georgia was one of the guys that, especially once Kirby got there, that they're one of the teams to play. For you, what did Alabama Georgia mean for you?
I mean, it was a huge game. I mean, it's up there with the LSU's, the Tennessees, that same caliber of a game. And I always remember as a kid, I actually went to the game where I guess who was the quarterback at the time? Aaron Murray or something that went like multiple overtimes and we lost. And I remember like crying on the way back to Birmingham. And I was like, why am I like now I'm like, why am I crying about a football game as a fan? But so leading up to me then playing there, it was always meant a ton. And especially like Josh said, with the fact that Kirby Smart used to work with Coach Saban, we always took a lot of pride in going out there and dominating. And then Josh and I are both undefeated against Georgia, and have had some pretty crazy games that we've played against them.
Sure.
So it's a game I'm excited for and can't wait. And I got to go to last year's game in Bryant-Denny as a fan, and it was pretty phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to another great game this year.
Well, we are joined by Nick for a reason. Nick, just taking a look at this game, Tim Keenan is back. Jam Miller expected to be back. Looking at this game, what are some things that stand out to you? And what is Alabama going to have to do in Athens in order to come out with a win?
Yeah, start with Tim and Jam. I mean, two guys at spots where Alabama could use some help. I mean, Kevin Riley's done a solid job stepping in as a younger guy at the running back spot, but they need more. I mean, and Jam throughout camp, coming into camp, was the guy that you heard about from people in the building, just as a guy who was impressing, was the reliable guy, kind of head above the rest kind of guy, and they could use his help. It'll be interesting to see how he's used. And then you look at Tim on the other side. How do they use him in the rotation on the defensive line? I mean, he's a guy who could be a big influence up front, and not only through his play, but also as a leader. I think they really missed him in Tallahassee. He wasn't able to make that trip, and I think they missed him on the sideline. So yeah, two big guys to have back, important guys to have back, but they're going to Athens where, I mean, Georgia hasn't lost since I think 2019 at home. It's a pretty
Wow.
insane streak, so it's not
Hmm.
easy to win between the hedges. So Alabama's ability to handle adversity, that's what I'm most intrigued to watch because they haven't handled it well a lot of times, especially on the
Hmm.
road.
And you talked about Jam right there. The running game hasn't been great against Florida State and against Wisconsin, being held to under 100 yards. Ty Simpson really ripping off the longest runs in both of those games. Do you view that as more of an offensive line problem, or is it the absence of Jam? And what do you expect once Jam is inserted back into that run game?
Yeah, I think it's never as simple as it's one thing. I think the offensive line can do better. I think the running backs can improve. I mean, there's just so many factors in it. But I also think that it might help when they get kind of that starting five figured out and exactly who they want to use. Because right now they still plan to continue rotating. That's what Ryan Grubb said on Monday. So yeah, we'll kind of see if that helps once they solidify that. Jaden Roberts obviously is a tough road grader in the middle of that offensive line at that guard spot, but he missed a lot of camp dealing with that
Yeah.
concussion issue. So getting him back, I think, is going to be getting him back to form, I should say, is important for that run game. But yeah, I think Jam Miller, he's a proven commodity. You get him back in there, it's going to go a long way.
And Kirby on Monday calling Ty Simpson the quote hottest quarterback in the country right now. What Nick Saban would call rat poison, of course. Just taking a look at what Ty's done over the past couple weeks. Phenomenal game, obviously, against UL Monroe. Continued that into Wisconsin. What are you hoping to see him do coming off a bye at Georgia?
Yeah, well, one thing you talk about the run game, he actually leads Alabama in missed
Worse.
tackles forced
Hmm.
through the first three games of the season. I don't know if that speaks to how maybe where the run game is at or what Ty's doing, but he obviously looked better than he did against Florida State. He looks more comfortable and he's done it at home. So he's proven he can do it at home. He can look the part like a quarterback who's in command. And now can he do it on the road in that environment? I don't think he was the problem in that loss, but I think, yeah, he was a guy who looked a little uncomfortable at times against Florida State. And who can blame him? I mean, it was his first game as the starter on the road in that environment. So, yeah, how does he factor into this tough Athens environment where you have a solid defense, you have a team that really wants to beat you, and how does he kind of do under that pressure?
And then on the inverse, obviously Georgia coming off a game really they should not have won at Tennessee. Kicker may be the most nervous I've ever seen a
Hmm.
football player on a football field. When you're looking at Georgia, what really sticks out to you? Is it Stockton or what really sticks out to you from the Georgia side of things?
Yeah, I talked to a few NFL scouts to kind of get their take just because they know ball a little better than I do heading into this matchup. And one thing on a macro level was how much that Georgia can handle adversity and be resilient. One
Hmm.
scout mentioned that there are legit reps you can see where Georgia just fights through things, that Georgia pushes through, that shows that in a very tangible way. It's not just some phrase or coach speak. Like Georgia does that. They did it. They did it against Tennessee, and we saw Georgia do it at Bryant Denny a season ago when they fought back after that big deficit. So
Hmm.
Georgia as a whole is a very mentally tough and resilient group. As far as individual talent, Gunnar Stockton is fascinating because he's been more of a runner than say Carson Beck. Ken Womack talked about that in his press conference heading into the game, and not that he's this absolute insane dual threat kind of guy, but he's rushed for three touchdowns this season. Carson Beck had one rushing touchdown all of last season for Georgia. So a little bit of a threat with his legs. You have to respect it. And yeah, he made some throws in that Tennessee game that were pretty impressive. I mean, that fourth down throw was not an easy throw to make. So yeah, we'll kind of see how he keeps progressing. I have my doubts about him to a certain extent coming into the season, but he looked solid against Tennessee. And then they've got some weapons that they're continuing to develop that they brought
Mhm.
in. I mean, you look at the Branch kid from USC. You look at Colby Young, who I think is in his second season with the program, but he was a transfer as well. That he's starting to do some nice things. So they've got some different guys. They've got the tight ends. They've got the running back Frazier. So they've got some weapons. But the one thing that stands out though is there's maybe not quite that what one scout phrase is a Jalen Carter or a Oscar or not Oscar Delp, Brock Bowers. They do have Oscar Delp. They don't have Brock Bowers anymore, but there's not quite that type on Georgia's roster where it's just this insane first round lock kind of talent. So you're not maybe looking for that, but there's a lot of good players that play strong college football and are complementary overall.
Yeah, and Josh, when we were texting earlier today, you were really impressed by the Georgia defense. Just talk about what really stuck out for you and what you're expecting Alabama to face when they walk into Athens on Saturday.
Well, just like you all said, like just earlier, like when we see Georgia on the football field, they are showing some type of resiliency. Kirby Smart said it at the end of his post game interview. Like that was Tennessee's game to win this past weekend. Like, they came out and they played. They gave up points earlier in the game. They fought back, and they showed that they were not going to be the team that was going to just walk out without putting up a fight. So. I say that for us to be able to go on the road and win in Athens, we're going to have to play a fully complete game all 4 quarters. And even probably furthermore, we could go into overtime. I have to see Alabama put it all on film. That means special teams, offense, defense, everyone flying around full 100% and living up to those five Alabama principles and the standards. So, I mean, these guys are going to have to go out and dominate each opponent, reestablish the line of scrimmage each and every play. We're going to have to make the right plays and right reads with Ty Simpson. I have fully faith in him. Offensive receivers, they're gonna have to go out and learn how to catch all balls. We can't have any drop balls. Defensively, we're gonna have to, really establish and push those guys back and, create some adversity for Gunner to face. Make them uncomfortable in the pocket, force him to make those hard throws, and give the DBs a chance to come up with a takeaway. So that's what I'm hoping to see. I think this is a real good team. They've definitely bounced back. They're going to be an underdog coming out of this. Well, going into this, and I think they'll if they continue to establish like, hey, look, we have furthermore to put into the tank. We have furthermore to do to show not only the world but ourselves like we can be that national championship team.
Yeah, and 2 weeks ago, game versus Wisconsin, Ryan Williams had a phenomenal game. Mac, you were talking about it. It looked like he was back. Jeremy Bernard, phenomenal in the first half, and then the second half, it kind of flipped, and it was Ryan Williams. Mac, as a former wide receiver, what do you think he was working on after that drop ball during the bye week to ensure, hey, this can't happen again? You're going up against Georgia, and you can't drop it in that situation against Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say that he was doing something different than what he was doing before, but for the most part, I'm sure he was doing what they do at every practice, and that's working on his hands, probably catching jogs after practice. And then I think the biggest thing for him was the mental break. You kind of come out there and we talked about just all of that pressure. You're the guy, you're returning, there's all this social media hype these days. And then, you come, you don't perform as well as you want to or what people expect you to do. And so, gave him a little bit of time to really, I think he deleted some of his social stuff, and then he comes back out there and makes a statement. And so I'm just super excited in general for the offense because we talked about Jam Miller coming back, and it's like that could be a huge pro, not just in the sense of having another great back there and our starting guy, but also because Georgia is going to have a tough time. Now you're preparing for not just one guy, but two, and then three, and so I think that opens up our offense a lot more. And just we've talked about week by week, it's been like building blocks. We didn't play the way, or the Tide didn't play the way against Florida State that we wanted to see. And then it's slowly but surely, it's like, all right, the effort is there, the mentality is coming back, and then it's a slight improvements each and every game. And I think this is the chance to really see, this is the first time we'll have that bigger game past Florida State because we saw Wisconsin got the brakes beaten off them by Maryland. So it shows us that, they're maybe not all what they're cut out to be. So I'm just really excited to see the offense and if they can continue to click and, work together like they have going into this game, and that'll be critical. The wide receiver core just looks awesome. And I hope they continue to do so.
And Nick, you're there a lot more than us there at Malmore. What have you heard about what they were doing in the bye week to prepare for Georgia?
Yeah, one thing that I thought was interesting was kind of the different tone, or at least what they talked about to us, because obviously we're around, but we're not out at practice. We're not necessarily just hanging in the building all day long. But the tone to me was different than some other bye weeks and some other open weeks where they weren't necessarily talking about like, okay, let's take a breather, let's go do this thing. Here's my plan for this weekend. Here's what I'm gonna do this day. Like they were talking like we're preparing.
Hmm.
Yeah, we have an extra week, but it's not a case of I'm gonna kick back and relax and then get ready to go next week. I mean, there were some very normally even in media sessions when we would ask about those things in the past, it'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this thing, or I'm gonna. I remember Tyler Booker talked about watching college football while building a Lego set last season, and yeah, I think it was just a matter of these guys saying that like, no, we're working, we're trying to get ready. And Kalen DeBoer did say that he had them watch some games this past
Hmm.
weekend, and he told them to make sure that they look at how teams handle adversity. So to make sure that even when they were watching games that aren't their own, they're not studying film. It's not like he's talking about Georgia film. He's just talking about, hey, go watch Arkansas, Memphis, go watch, Missouri, South Carolina, just see how teams handle adversity and kind of take notes from it. And I thought it was an interesting kind of way that he wanted them to spend that time and maybe learn something from it.
Yeah, it's a good point. We talked a lot, Mac and Josh, you talked a lot last week about bye weeks aren't rest weeks at Alabama. So for you guys, almost every year, if I'm not mistaken, you guys had a bye week before an LSU game. So what did those Saturdays look like before going up against a big opponent when you had a bye, Josh, starting with you?
Well, we would just always check in with our coaches. We would have some type of, film session or review of what we're going to be doing the next week. There was never a time to like, kick your feet back or relax. Like in some type of way, form, or fashion, you're getting up to the facility, you're doing some type of deep dive of plays or the analysis that you will be given for the rest of your season. Like Coach Saban was literally a perfectionist, and there was always, homework assignments, like anything that we could get, any information or any edge that we could get on our opponent, we were looking to, try to get that and make sure we had it in our pockets for whenever a big play or, the play that you don't expect to come up in the game. So we were always either studying on the football field, working with perfecting some of our craft, or in the weight room trying to get stronger.
Matthew, I'll just speak on the fact of after a bye week, what it does and the excitement. Because as a player, you're in it. You're week by week, you're in the season. The hype's there. Saturday's coming up. You've got a game, and it's exciting. And then that bye week pulls you out of it. You have practice, you're in it, but then that's the first weekend where you're really getting a taste to watch it, essentially just from the TV and see what other teams are doing, and what's happening around the NCAA. And then bang, you jump back into it. I think guys are excited. There's a bit of better rest for the most part.
Mhm.
We talked about it. You practice extremely hard on a bye week, but there's also more time, and then you have the weekend. So getting back into it, guys were always super excited, and it really did well for us coming to play a bigger opponent.
Absolutely. And we're wrapping up the Georgia talk, just going to go around the horn here. Nick, starting with you, Alabama will win at Georgia if.
It's a good question. I haven't thought about that yet. I think protect the football. Alabama has not turned the ball over yet on offense, and I'm sure some people might want to knock on wood right now, but they haven't yet. And I think that if Alabama can protect the football, they've got the talent to beat Georgia. It's not that they don't, but I think that the moment that they start turning the ball over, that's how games have gotten away from Alabama on the road. You look at Vanderbilt, you look at Oklahoma, you look at the Michigan game in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Turnovers are killer. And that sounds obvious, but I think that really is the foundational piece that Alabama protects the football. they're going to have a really good shot to win because I think talent wise, no, Georgia is not superior across the board or anything like that. I think it's a very evenly matched kind of face off, if you will. And so Alabama can't do
Mhm.
anything to give Georgia that advantage.
Josh, same question to you. What is Alabama will win on Saturday if what?
I would say if they play penalty free, one. Two, we don't turn the ball over for sure, 100%. You cannot win the game turning the ball over. But the third one, and I think the biggest one is if we decide that we're going to go around, fly around, and not back down. I think that is the selling point for this team. We have to know and come in with confidence, like, hey, we know we had a bad game earlier on in the season. That game is behind us. That is not who this team is going to be or in the future for this season. So going in, being like you're not going to be the pushover guy. We're going to come in, we're going to dominate, and we're going to smack you guys in the mouth. And I think that will be the seller for the game.
And Mac?
Yeah, I think both Josh and Nick said it well, but it's an equal matchup when you look across the board. When you look at the players, it's going to be a very close game, and it's all going to depend on, to me, the intangibles. You know, we've seen Alabama come out and play some solid pass games, but Florida State, they looked rattled. You know, there was too much pressure on the quarterback. Ty was a little bit delayed on some of his throws, escaping the pocket too early, and now it's like, all right, we've had this chance to kind of regroup, reload, resettle. Are we going to go back out there and kick ass? Like they've got to play penalty free. They've got to make sure that, say penalty free. Obviously, they're probably going to get penalties. There's no way they're not. But to minimize any and all errors and mental mistakes is going to be crucial because the talent is there on both ends. It's going to come down to the players who wants it more, and then coaching is going to be a big factor as well.
Yeah, I think you guys all hit the nail on the head. And the real big thing is just playing mistake-free football, playing with effort, playing it with intensity, playing with that you guys have talked about, the Bama standard. We didn't see that on the road at Florida State. This is our first road game since that Florida State loss. So how are they going to handle that? If they get kicked in the mouth, how are they going to respond to that? Because they didn't get kicked in the mouth against Wisconsin or against ULM. So how are they going to respond? And it's really going to come down to Ty. It's the first road game since that Florida State game. He was playing UL Monroe and a Wisconsin team who might be as good as UL Monroe after we saw them get killed at against Maryland. So it's the first test since then, and I'm really curious to see how he responds because obviously he played well, but he faces better defenses at Malmore than he has at Bryant Denny in the last two games. So it's really going to be about him protecting the football, making smart decisions, and hopefully Ryan Williams isn't making those drops and he's correcting the mistakes that we've seen as of late, and he continues uh, to build momentum from that second half against Wisconsin. So definitely going to be interesting. And another interesting storyline is black jerseys. Georgia, obviously, the black jerseys against Alabama, they haven't worn them since that infamous 2008 game, but apparently they might be coming back. Georgia fans are trying to do a blackout. Josh and Mac, for you guys as players, what was it like when, I mean, every Alabama road game is the biggest game of the season for any team you were
Mhm.
going on the road to play. But what was it like going on the road and seeing a color out, whether it be a blackout or whatever, and seeing how excited visiting fans were to at the chance to beat Alabama?
I thought it was just pretty crazy. Like, you see the people and there's an announcement made, hey, everybody come up, we're gonna show up in this one color as a unit. But to actually see it like in real life and see everybody buying in and how I would say intense and aggressive some of the opposing fans were. I mean, you name it, we got plenty of things thrown at us, and a lot of words, greater than four letters, I would say, said at us. So, I mean. I think it's pretty crazy. I love it. College football is here, and that's how you know it's in the air. I mean, it's a great atmosphere by any means, and you just have to love it with the game of football.
And Mac,
Matthew, I'll defer and say that Josh's answer was great. But as well, and there was not much more to say there, but also speaking of that 2008 game, I just like to say it because we were coached, Josh, by Glenn Coffey, who was a stud in
Hmm.
that game. So I just want to give a shout out to Glenn Coffey because I remember him, running all over that Georgia defense, and then he comes and is a part of the program when we were there. Unbelievable guy, great coach, and hopefully, hey, they're going to black out. I'm hammering the tide is all I'm saying. If they're going to do a blackout game, we know what happens when that blackout game comes, and we know what we got to do: unload the clip.
Oh, boy.
And Nick, have you heard anything official whether they are wearing the black jerseys or anything of that nature?
No, I haven't. Not that I have the best place sources in the Georgia program, but I don't know that they'll actually do it. And frankly, I mean, people in sports are superstitious, so it'd be kind of surprising if they decide to do it just because, yeah, it didn't work. But maybe they want
Yeah.
to try to change the trend, and maybe they see this as an opportunity to do it. But I don't know. History says otherwise.
Yeah, and if they do, you definitely won't see Josh and I wearing the Travis Matthew black Alabama pullovers we
Yeah,
are right
nah,
now.
nah, nah.
I got the
But
gray
No
one.
chance.
but moving on Monday, it was announced that the annual opponents for Alabama for the next 4 years, they'll revise it in 4 years if need be, will be Tennessee, Mississippi State, excuse me, and Auburn. Noticeably missing is LSU, and me as someone who lived in Louisiana for 3 years, was within feet of Mason Taylor when he caught the overtime 2 point conversion to beat Alabama, and took me 4 hours to get out of that stadium. I, for one, am not very happy about it. I really wish the Alabama LSU game stayed on the schedule because I think that's one that is definitely way more currently relevant than Mississippi State is. I understand the history with the Battle of '82. It's the closest two schools in the SEC. But Josh and Mac, for you, what was your initial reaction to seeing that we're not playing LSU every year, and we are going to be playing Mississippi State, Auburn, and Tennessee every year?
Well, I was initially shocked because, normal schedule every year when I was there, we would always have our bye week. And after our bye week, we would play LSU. It would be like, 4 games. I know we would always play Tennessee in October. We would always play LSU kind of like November, but there were always 4 teams that were lined up in the month of October. So hearing that, LSU may not be one of those teams, Tennessee still will remain. It is a kind of shock. There is a little bit of a rivalry there since, Coach Saban was always there. He won a championship there. Um, it's back and forth with championships, but I guess it makes sense when you talk about, the heritage of the SEC and kind of where we're going. Not at all shocked about Auburn or Tennessee. Mississippi State is just kind of like that one that's out there, just based on how they've been able to be consistent over the past few years. Really haven't had a great team since I would say, Dak Prescott was the quarterback for them. So, I mean, it's good that we can change it in the next 4 years, but it kind of saddens me to know that we won't be playing those guys. We won't be able to whip up on the LSU Tigers from time to time.
And Max, same for you. Just what was your initial reaction? You grew up in Alabama, so what was your thought of seeing we're not going to be playing LSU every year, but we are going to be playing Mississippi State?
You know, at the end of the day, like immediate thought was like, damn, because that game is absolutely electric. I can think of the times that like where especially when we played LSU at home and we actually unfortunately lost, just how electric it was with the lights and like at
Mhm.
night and like, you think about then before Josh and I were there, you had TJ Yeldon in that game getting the screen pass in Baton Rouge. Like there's so many electric moments from that rivalry. But the thing is like this is in our time period. Before we were born, who knows? Maybe a Mississippi State and Alabama was the thing, and like there was a great matchup year after year. So I think for us right now, it's kind of a shock and a little surprising, but at the end of the day, like Bama's still playing football, so I'm
And
still
Nick, same
grateful.
thing. I mean, it wasn't exactly much of a surprise. It'd been talked about for a little while now, but for you, what was kind of your level of surprise, if there was any, that Alabama, it's Mississippi State, not LSU.
Well, first I'll give you kind of just the facts of it, then I'll give you my thoughts. The facts of it, I'm not shocked in that I thought it would still be a possibility because I knew they were trying to get some equity, if you will, or some balance to how they distributed these permanent opponents. They're not actually permanent, it's for the next 4 years. So it's not permanent, but it's annual for the next 4 years. So Mississippi State was always seen as a possibility just because, I mean, Nick Saban was making an issue about it just a couple of years ago when Alabama in that kind of initial draw up was going to be playing Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU, some teams that were doing pretty well. Not so much Auburn at the time, but Tennessee and LSU were both doing quite well. So it was kind of, okay, how fair is that? And so it kind of opened the door to Mississippi State. And I figured if they weren't going to have LSU, they were going to pick Mississippi State. But in terms of my thoughts on it, I think it's ridiculous because LSU, right now, we're in the era of college football of compelling games, trying to essentially create all these good matchups, trying to get to a point where, yeah, it's maybe a bit more NFL, where you're seeing more good games in the schedule. You're seeing more non-conference games that are good. And Mississippi State and Alabama has just not been a good game. Mac talked about maybe one day it was a thing, or it used to be a thing before we were born. It really wasn't. The all-time record that Alabama has in it is 88, 17, and 3. Like, it's never been a rivalry. It's a rivalry in terms of proximity. It's a rivalry in that way, and they have played the most of any opponent. No, Alabama's not played anyone else more than that, but it's really never been a compelling game. Mississippi State has not won the game since 2007, and Alabama has won, I believe, 21 of the last 23 games in that matchup. So it's just not, it's never been a good game. LSU, on the flip side, has created some of the best matchups in the past 2 decades between Alabama and LSU. So I think it's a real miscarriage of justice to Alabama and to college football for that rivalry not to happen, because it's fantastic and it's led to some incredible matchups. So I think it really hurts college football that game isn't happening.
And I'll let you talk on your Missouri Tigers. You get Arkansas A&M and M and Oklahoma. Your thoughts on those three?
I mean, it's kind of what is it, the old Big Eight or Big 12 or whatever, before my time there, at least, because when I went there, Mizzou was an SEC team. But yeah, I mean, those are some, you have the Oklahoma is kind of a historic rival of sorts, and Arkansas is that kind of corporate rival that has been created since they came to the SEC, Missouri that being. And so, yeah, I think it's a fine shake. I mean, it's nothing crazy, nothing that stood out to me is they messed that up. But as long as Missouri's playing Kansas every year, that's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen more than anything.
Yeah, it was nice to see that one being back this year. But back to Alabama, I think you hit the nail on the head. And like I said, I lived in Louisiana for 3 years, and there's nothing LSU hates more than Alabama. I lived there for 3 years. They talked about that game when LSU beat Alabama in 2022. I heard about that from someone every single day until Alabama beat LSU in 2023 and Bryant Denny. Looking at it from the LSU side of things, they view Alabama as their biggest rival. Obviously, Alabama doesn't view LSU as their biggest rival, but LSU doesn't really have a true rival because for years they were playing A&M as their rivalry game in the final week. They have a trophy game against Arkansas, but it's not a real. They don't care about that one as much. They hate Alabama, and most of it has to do with the fact that Nick Saban left LSU for the Dolphins and then went to Alabama and didn't go back to LSU, even though that job wasn't open. But from their side of things, it sucks because they lose their biggest rival. That'd be like Alabama losing Auburn and not having the Iron Bowl every year. So from their side of things, it's really unfortunate. From our side of things, and from the average college football fan perspective, you could name so many games off the top of your head. I mean, College Game Day is at the Alabama LSU game every year for a reason. It's one of the best games of the year every single year. Mac mentioned the 2019 game. Donald Trump was at that game as a sitting president of the United States. That's how big that game is every year. And the fact that we're losing that, and obviously 2022 is a phenomenal game this past year, Alabama killed them, but it had a lot of they were calling it a college football playoff elimination game at the time. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that we're losing that. And like Nick said, Alabama and Mississippi State have played the most out of any SEC team in the conference, and they Mississippi State hasn't won it since '07. So it's the balance side of things makes sense to me, but that's really the only thing that makes sense in my eyes. So wrapping that conversation up, it's unfortunate that we're losing that. We'll find out the other opponents on Tuesday. We're recording this on Monday, obviously coming out on Wednesday. So I guess we will see what the remainder of the schedule looks like from there. But getting into the picks, Nick mentioned it at the top. Slade was our first guest. Didn't exactly do great last week. He was 3-5, worst out of the four of us. Josh was first last week. He went six
Yes,
and two.
sir.
Mac was 5-3. And Josh, a little shout out to your Memphis Tigers. They a crazy ending to that game. Arkansas could have just kicked the field goal, and they wound up fumbling it, losing that game. Your Memphis Tigers got a big win right there. I went 4-4, so that brings our overall standings. We have a tie at the top. Mac and Josh both 21, 17 and 1. Falling a little behind at 17, 21 and 1. And then the guest rankings, Nick is going up against Slade, who went 3-5. We have 8 games on the schedule this week. Wouldn't be right if we started anywhere else. Number 17th ranked Alabama going on the road to play 5th ranked Georgia. Georgia, a 2.5 point favorite in this one. And Nick, I will give you, as our guest, we allow our guests to go first, and I'll let you give your piece and your prediction for Saturday in Athens.
The line's 2.5, right?
Mine is 2.5 at the time of us recording. Yes.
So I I almost want to phone a friend and see if Miss Terry would help me because I think she had the best picks of anyone in College Game Day last season.
Hey.
So
If you want to call Miss Terry, you're
I
more than welcome to call
need
Miss
to
Terry.
channel that, but I'm so I've gone back and forth as to who I think is going to win. I just think I realize that I'm on an Alabama podcast, but it's at Georgia in Athens where they haven't lost since 2019. Alabama seems to like to snap Georgia's streaks, but
Mm.
I give me Georgia by a field goal.
Uh,
Oh God.
I'm starting things
You're
off rough.
you're the first one.
we
Well,
gotta kick him off.
you're the first one to pick against Alabama on this podcast. So hopefully you were wrong. Josh, you didn't
I
have
can come back
very
and eat
many.
crow if you want me to. I'll come back and eat it. See, that's the hard thing. Like I go back and forth because like if I pick Alabama, I feel like I'm a homer. But if I don't pick Alabama, I'm being too contrarian. It's a tough spot to be in.
There's a certain ESPN former Alabama player who battles with that every week, and fans tend to think he goes another way. But Josh, I'll let you combat what Nick just went with.
Um, I think it's gonna be a tough win for Alabama. I think this is where they put all the pieces together. They show the world that, they're gonna they have, discipline, effort, toughness, pride, and they're gonna play commitment football. Give me the University of Alabama covering.
All right, and Mac.
We've seen Alabama game one, uh, you know, away game did not look great. And then we played two average Joe Schmoes in the following weeks. So I hate to, I'm just kidding. I was going to lead it up and try to agree with Nick, but hell no. I'm going with the Tide. I think it's going to be, a statement game for Alabama. And I hope the offense is clicking on all cylinders, limit a lot of those penalties. We got that mentality back. We're ready to rumble, ready to rock and roll. So Alabama is going to
Yeah,
cover the spread.
yeah, and I'm going with Alabama as well. I think Alabama wins it by. I'll agree with Nick in the sense that I think it's a field goal game, one way or the other. I'm gonna tend to lean with Alabama. I don't think Georgia's looked that good. They looked
Yeah.
fine against Marshall. They didn't look good against Austin P, and they should have lost at Tennessee. Had they lost that game at Tennessee, I think Georgia would have won this game by 10 points. But I think since they squeaked by and did get the win, I'm going to go with Alabama. I think it's a 3 point game, one way or the other. I'm going to roll with Alabama, and Alabama has a lot to play for. And Kalen DeBoer still knows people were calling for his head. People were going on interviews in Huntsville and saying if they won the lottery, he'd be fired. And he hears those things. There's a reason he was wearing the hoodie in the last 2 games. He had to be himself, and hopefully with Tim Keenan back, with Jam Miller expected to be back, we take strides across the field. So three of us on Alabama. Nick's going with Georgia. The next game,
Shame
one
on
of
you,
two.
Nick.
Am I gonna be allowed to pick anymore? Or do I just need to hop off the
Hey, I
call? Like,
Uh,
respect it. I respect it.
He's
He
yeah,
an
knows Nick
unbiased
knows
journalist, and
ball.
that's what he's here for.
He knows ball. That's why he's on here. He's like, we are all extremely biased, I feel like, on the other side. So, Nick, look, and there's some people out there taking these picks. Someone just texted me last week. I got a new car off of your picks. I said, okay, thank you. So I'm trying to
And definitely
continue.
didn't get it this past week.
yeah. I didn't get it this past week.
We have two non-SEC games on the slate today. We'll jump to sixth-ranked Oregon at third-ranked Penn State. Penn State a 3.5 point favorite. The whiteout game. College game day is at this one. Some scrutiny over their decision for that. Nick, what do you think in this one?
I like Penn State and Happy Valley. I mean, they still haven't proven it just yet this season, but until otherwise, I believe in Drew Aller. I believe in Andy Koldnicki, the offensive coordinator. I just Penn State's tough at home, and that whiteout environment is pretty great. I mean, Oregon's a phenomenal team. I could see it going either way, but give me Penn State.
Mac?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Probably the toughest on the slate, to be honest, in my opinion. Oregon's been playing great, but they haven't had a true challenge. You're in Penn State, and like Nick mentioned, that stadium is electric. I'm just so torn here because I love Coach Lanning,
Uh,
and I think he's done a great job with the Oregon program. But I guess because one of my best friends here in Nashville went to Penn State and played there, I'm just gonna say that I'm gonna have to go with the Nittany Lions here.
oh no. Oh no. Well, since Mac already said his, to me, I'm gonna ride with the Oregon Ducks. I think Dan Lanning is doing a terrific job up there. I think this may be his year. He's coming back with the national championship. That's just my opinion. I think Penn State is very overrated. I got Oregon winning this by a landslide.
Yeah, and because it's a 3.5, if it was 2.5, I might have gone with Penn State, but 3.5, I think similar to Alabama, I think it's field goal either way. So I'll
Mhm.
take the points. Oregon covers 3.5. They might lose by three, but I would still get the pick right. So the other non-SEC game, USC a 6.5 point favorite at Illinois. USC ranked 21, Illinois ranked 23. Illinois got their butts
But
kicked at
yeah,
Indiana. I was way off on that one. I had
woo,
Illinois winning that straight up. Not correct. Because of that, I'm going to go with USC. I can't ride with Illinois again after that week. Nick, what you got?
So, Josh and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is Nick Saban used to say an embarrassed team is a dangerous team. Illinois got embarrassed big time, so I'm taking
for
Illinois at
sure.
home.
Uh, Good strategy
Josh?
right there. I think, an embarrassed team definitely has to be a team you're gonna look out for. But if they don't have the tools or the right tangibles to play to, or standards to play to, they're not gonna do much. So with that, give me USC.
And Mac?
I'm gonna go USC as well. I mean, that was a horrible loss that Illinois has had, and their defense doesn't look great. USC's offense looks solid, so you mix those two together, and I think you got a USC W by more than 6.5.
All
Woo.
right. And jumping into the SEC play, a very, very intriguing game for more reasons than one. Apparently, Whit Weeks and Lane Kiffin's daughter are now dating, which is a wild, wild thing to come out the week of that game. But
Mm.
fourth ranked LSU hitting the road to play Ole Miss in Oxford. Ole Miss coming into this one ranked 13th. Ole Miss a 2.5 point favorite. In my eyes, neither has really looked that good. Ole Miss had a great win against Tulane, another game I just did not see coming. LSU's offense hasn't looked great. The defense has looked phenomenal, but now that Clemson win doesn't look as impressive. I'm gonna go with Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss wins it by a hair. Mac, what do you think?
I'm gonna ride with the Land Sharks as well, if that's what they're calling them these days. Just because of the fact, like you had mentioned, LSU has been inconsistent, and Ole Miss at home, and has looked better throughout the season. So I think I'm gonna go with Ole Miss here.
Josh?
Give me LSU Tigers. I'm telling you, Brian Kelly has been hot all year. He did it earlier this year. He was going off during, post-game interviews. This is a team that is being led by the players, and the coach is behind them 100%. LSU Tigers are going to come out of, what is it, the Land Shark Stadium with the victory.
And Nick?
I'm torn in this one too because part of me, just when I was believing in LSU, I saw what their offense did against Florida, but that's a good Florida defense, though.
It
So,
is.
despite Brian Kelly's just berating of reporters after that game and trying to convince people they have a running game, give me LSU.
Michael Cauble, the WBRZ reporter who got scrutinized by Brian Kelly there. I knew him from my time in Lake Charles. But another somewhat intriguing game. Auburn dropping out of the rankings after an interesting loss in Norman. That touchdown being called back. But Auburn fell on the road at Oklahoma, and it doesn't get easier. It gets more difficult. They head to Aggie land to play the ninth ranked Texas A&M Aggies. A&M a 6.5 point favorite. And I didn't like what I saw out of Jackson Arnold. I'm going A&M to cover the 6.5. What do you think, Nick?
I don't know. Despite how it looked at times, I actually was more impressed by Auburn than I thought I was going to be. I mean, because that Oklahoma defense, I think, is legit.
Yeah.
So I think A&M wins, but I think Auburn covers at the spread of what, 6.5?
Yep.
6.5.
So give me. I'm picking Auburn, but I think A&M's going to win.
Josh?
I think Nick had a good point. I mean, Oklahoma looked phenomenal this past weekend. I mean, 10 sacks in one game on Auburn. Now, they can say one or two things. Auburn just doesn't have a good offensive line, or they have a really, really good defense. With that being said, I think Auburn just kind of sucks. So give me the opposing team covering.
Give me the opposing team. It's Texas A&M.
Yeah, tell me Texas, my bad. Uh,
um, I'm just gonna follow along. This is another toss-up. When I said that first one we picked was one of the harder ones on the slate, but after Auburn struggles up front last week, and two side note, that's just typical Auburn football. I hated to see it for the Auburn fans. My cousin, her husband is a big Auburn fan, and they threw a birthday party for him. Poor guy had to see it go down like that. I feel like that's just like the epitome of Auburn football. It looks like they have a shot, looks like they have a chance, and then they just blow it. So I'm gonna ride with the Aggies this week at -6.5.
All right. Jackson Arnold, from what I saw, most of the sacks he took were his fault, and I just don't see it. I got A&M winning that one. So Tennessee hitting the road, playing an undefeated Mississippi State team, a location Alabama is going to get familiar with there in Starkville. Tennessee a 7.5 point favorite. Mississippi State had a good win against Arizona State, but I'm not a believer in the Bulldogs. So I got Tennessee covering the 7.5. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, the cowbells can be a lot, but I think that Josh Heupel, that offense, Joey Aguilar, they silence that. They win, they cover, Vols victory.
Mac?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming off of a tough loss is to what Nick. What was the quote you said again earlier? Can you repeat that one more time?
An embarrassed team is a dangerous team. That's what Nealon Hibbett told me that Saban had said a
Coach
time or two.
Saban, yep. And look, that's Tennessee this week, and they are a team that has the toolbox. When Josh alluded to earlier, a team's got to have the toolbox, even if they're embarrassed. They got to have some tools. Tennessee has that. I think they're going to cover the spread
got
minus
that
seven and a half.
Thule on them, huh? Well, give me the Vols. I think, when they played Georgia last week, they really were upset that they didn't come out on top of that game. They're gonna have a chip on their shoulder coming in to Starkville. I think they're gonna put those cowbells to rest and walk out victorious.
Wrapping it up, two more games to get through. This one, Notre Dame hitting the road to play at Arkansas. I considered going to this game, but the Ryder Cup is on this weekend, so I will not be going to this game. Notre Dame, a 4.5 point favorite. I don't know how Sam Pittman is still
Yeah.
employed at the University of Arkansas, and an embarrassed team is a dangerous team, but I don't think Arkansas is going to be a dangerous team against Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins by double digits. Nick?
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating because that adage can kind of apply to both, right? Where I mean, you look at a Notre Dame team that bounced back against Purdue, but at the same time, I still think wants to bounce back from what happened to start the season. I mean, that was a tough way for the Arkansas game to end against Memphis. But I just think you look at these two teams. I mean, Jeremiah Love, he's a good player, got him going against Purdue. And obviously, they're going to be facing tougher than Purdue. But I think that he can be a fantastic football player. So give me Notre Dame.
Josh?
I'll take Notre Dame. I think that they're going to be the team. They kind of got beat early on, but they're looking to make their identity in these college football top 25 teams. So I think that they'll be ready to bounce back and really show these guys and make a run for the playoff later on in the year.
And Mac?
Rudy, Rudy, Rudy. Give me the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I've always loved, I've preached that Marcus Freeman is a great coach, great human being. This has nothing to do with seeing these teams. I mean, I know Arkansas lost to Memphis, but this is more about the fact that, I haven't seen much of either of these teams. I haven't watched many of these games, but I'm just gonna go with the Irish because I love Marcus Freeman. I think he's a great person and a great coach.
Notre Dame has Mac hooked for life because of a movie made about a walk-on. But and we're moving on to the final game we have on the schedule. Nick's Missouri Tigers got a decent win against South Carolina this week. This week, South Carolina back at home hosting Kentucky, both unranked. South Carolina, 6.5 point favorite. Lenora Sellers, they had a lot of hype coming into the season for a reason. I'm going South Carolina to cover. Josh, what do you think?
Well, I really don't know. These are two like programs that are like the sneaky evil little brothers that if you don't watch them, they'll come and take over whatever you have going on. Ah, give me South Carolina. I'll go with South Carolina.
And Mac?
Yeah, I mean, Matthew, like you said, it's been streaky. It's interesting to watch. Like they come out and they look great at the beginning of the season. Lenora Sellers looks awesome, and then they go get stomped by Vanderbilt, and like you're just like, what? Who
Why you
is
had to
this
bring up the
team?
Vanderbilt game? I mean,
He
Who is
had to
this
bring up
team, and what are they
Vanderbilt,
doing?
his
oh my
favorite
Um,
team.
and the thing is, like, I went to a Kentucky football game last year. I hammered them because I was there. They were playing some Buns team, and they ended up losing me everything I had and
Hereford
everything else that I
Buns.
I thought I had in that game. So I have to fade them eternally. So I'm gonna ride with this with the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Bring us
Okay.
home, Nick. South Carolina, 6.5 point favorite at home.
Yeah, I don't mean to keep this boring, but I mean, I don't believe in either team at this juncture. Like, I'm not feeling good about either squad. I mean, South Carolina just got run over by Missouri's rushing attack with Ahmad Hardy. Didn't look great on defense, but I still believe in Lenore Sellers. I mean, he's still a good player, quality player, not just a good player. I mean, he could be really special, I think, long term in his career. So, that being the equalizer, give me Lenore Sellers over Zach Calzada, even though I saw Zach Calzada have some pretty serious success against Alabama in College Station back in the day.
I saw Zach Calzada when he was playing some Southland Conference football. He's been all over the place, but awesome. Well, Nick, I really appreciate you joining us. Hopefully, you do better than Slade next this week, but hopefully, you get one pick wrong. So we'll see what happens.
I'm worried though because I came into this knowing that Mac and Josh have done better than the guest pickers so far, and I picked against Mac and Josh, both of whom played college football. I did not, so I'm not feeling great right now, but we'll see how it plays out.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Well,
This is a big week. We have a tie at number one spot. We have our second guest picker. He's trying to go up against Slade's picks, which were horrible. So he doesn't have a lot of pressure there. But then he faded us a bunch today and especially faded us on the Crimson Tide pick. This is an exciting week. This is an
It
exciting week of college
is.
football.
It
I
is.
Maybe I can
promise
move up
you,
the
if
rankings. We'll see. I will come back on if I need to eat crow, but also if you want to have me back on to dance after a successful week, I'm happy to do that too. So.
well, if Georgia wins, you will not be back on to say you were right about Alabama losing at Georgia, but always welcome anytime. I appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Hey, thanks
Thanks,
for having me,
Nick.
guys. Really enjoyed it.
We
Awesome.
loved
Well,
having you on. It was awesome. Appreciate you coming.
Appreciate it,
Awesome. Well,
Nick.
Alabama hits the road to play Georgia, a very intriguing matchup. Join us next week as we break it all down, hopefully recapping another Alabama win. So roll tide, and we'll see you next time.
Roll
Roll
Tide.
Tide.